Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the BSR MX5 trophy for round 5 at Virginia International Raceway. My name is Jack Oliphant, and I'll be bringing you tonight's coverage solo, unfortunately. Ed May apparently has been having some technical difficulties, which means we aren't able to bring you a co-commentator, which is a bit of a shame, but we only found out a little bit last minute, so hopefully this will be an entertaining evening and the racing will be good enough so it can carry us through it all, because I'm sure nobody out there really wants to listen to me constantly talk to myself for an entire 2 hours. I certainly don't anyway. Virginia International Raceway is one of those tracks that's not that commonly used on iRacing, so unfortunately we do have a slight lack of, a slightly smaller grid, shall we say. And in fact, I'll be able to bring up who we do have because we're well into qualifying now. Chris Dixon is one of the drivers. He's currently sat in second place, but it's such a long lap that we don't actually have any times on the board just yet. They've only done their out lap and about midway through their fastest, well, their first fast lap, I should say. What I'm going to do, which is something I don't normally do, is bring up the track map on the right-hand side of the circuit. Now, Virginia International Raceway is a bit of a tight and twisty circuit, and you can see that mapped out on the right. And as soon as the drivers are actually able to complete their first flying lap, which should be in a couple of tenths' time, you'll be able to see them go around and sort of visualise what the track looks like as they're going over the line to start their first lap. Sorry, finish their first lap, I should say, actually, with Chris Dixon. And I believe that's James Clark following very swiftly behind them. A bit of a spinner on the right-hand side there. And a thank you to Katie Eames, who I believe has just liked the video. In fact, there we go, Katie Eames. Just going to move that little notification bell slightly further down. There we go. Katie Eames says evening. Evening to Katie. Very nice to have you along. And I would like a little bit of a potential chat in the YouTube or Facebook chat tonight to help me out a bit, to give me someone to talk to. That'd be quite nice. But I'm sure we'll be able to get through it, like I said. Other drivers that are currently in the session, Adam McNally. One of the quicker drivers we have to be keeping an eye out on. X-Site's always well represented. Apologies, I do have a bit of a sore throat. It's really not lining up very well. I will explain why I have a sore throat and where we were last week, because if anybody was waiting on a Tuesday night in Jacko Racing, you will have noticed that there were no, there was no racing, there was no broadcast, and that is because I was in Greece on another job, and unfortunately couldn't find another broadcaster and commentator to cover it. Ed was willing and able, but we didn't have another broadcaster, unfortunately, which meant that he was not able to cover it solo. Bit of a shame, but here we are, and during my week in Greece, it was for work, I can trust me. It definitely was. It sounds like it should have been a holiday, but it wasn't, even though it did feel like it at some points. It was very nice out there. It does mean that I have been using my voice rather a lot, networking and getting people in simulators and teaching them how to drive and everything like that, and a few late nights socialising with the other people at the network means that I've lost my voice somewhat a little bit, and it's gone a little bit croaky, a little bit run down, but we'll hopefully, as I said, get through it. As we see Adam McNally attempting to get through the corner, but unfortunately cutting it all together. Adam Delmont, his teammate, a bit stronger than Adam McNally over the course of the season so far. I'm just trying to bring up the stat sheet so I can give you a little bit of an insight of actually what happened at Canada, which was last week's racing extravaganza that unfortunately we didn't get to witness. I can tell you that Jason Cooper took home 3 out of 4 victories, which isn't entirely surprising, back at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park last week. In the first race, he beat Adam Delmont and Yang Chu Lin, his teammate, of course. Yang Chi is here tonight, so is Adam Delmont. But I'm just looking for Jason Cooper, sorry. He doesn't appear to be here, so somebody else will take the opportunity to take a couple of race victories. So Jason Cooper took 3 last time out. The only one he didn't win was race number 3, which was won by Andy McEwen, who also is not here tonight, unfortunately. And I was just saying in the build-up that, unfortunately, Virginia International Raceway does have a bit of a problem with the fact that it's not that widely used in BSR quite often. We are following the iRacing calendar for the MX5 Championship, but that doesn't always mean that everybody has the tracks. And if you're not familiar with iRacing, it's a subscription-based service. You pay X amount of money. And to be honest, I can't actually remember how much it is per month because it was that long ago I subscribed to it. And I haven't actually looked recently. But you pay a subscription to the service, and then you pay for each car and each track you race on. The MX5 is a free track, which is fantastic because it's one of the best cars on the service. However, sorry, just trying to clear my throat in the least disgusting way possible by muting my mic. However, the tracks, there is only a small handful of them that are free, and most of them are oval circuits. As who was that? That was Adam Delmont skipping across the grass on the outside. Rather unforgiving track is Virginia International Raceway. But yeah, so you have to buy the cars, but the MX5 is free, which is why you quite often see massive MX5 grids in these sort of leagues. But the tracks quite often aren't free, and therefore a lot of drivers who maybe aren't in the running for the championship, or maybe are not able to attend every single race, they decide to not take part, and they decide to skip out a week if they don't own the track, which is fairly understandable. The tracks and the cars are about £7 to £11, depending on which track, which car, and how many you've bought in the past. If you've bought enough, like quite a lot of broadcasters like myself do have to buy every single track and every single car that you come across just to cover the event, and then you do get a 40+ track/car discount. I think it's about 30%, 40% you save on each individual item. You still do have to pay for them. It's one of the reasons why iRacing is very popular in some series, but also one of the sort of downfalls of iRacing, to be honest. If you maybe pick up a copy of Assetto Corsa, you can probably get it fairly cheap these days, and you can access all the mods for completely free. But it's a little bit more difficult. It's not as user-friendly, even though iRacing isn't particularly user-friendly in my opinion. And also it's just downright not as popular. So iRacing does offer that ability to put on special events. They're a bit more community-focused, and that's why a lot of people are drawn to it. We're looking at the different classes that we've got here today. Well, they're up on the top of your screen. You've got the pros in the green, the Pro-Ams in the blue, and the Ams in the yellow. Now, what I can tell you is we've got 7 drivers that are out there currently qualifying. 10 are here tonight, but 2 of them aren't able to go out and qualify. Yang Chi Lin is sat in the pits, which normally means that they've got a disqualification from qualifying. And Chris Knox is currently sat in the pits as well, which probably means that he is also not able to take part in this particular qualifying session. Chris Dixon is out there. We started today focusing on Chris Dixon. He is out there, and I believe he is an AM because he's got the 900 car number. Yeah, that does, I think. I think anything in the 900s or triple digits in general, I think, means AM driver. And he is rocking, more evidently, the AM livery for Year 1 TV. So Chris Dixon and Colin Sansom will be battling it out amongst each other. Dan Skinner has been the only Pro-Am in recent weeks, and so therefore he's probably going to take another victory in the Pro-Am category as Chris Dixon gets a little bit loose on the outside. Lars Fischer currently topping the times, and if we bring up the best times, you can see that it's by a good half a second. So Lars Fischer doing extremely well over James Neve, Adam Delmont and Adam McNally. The difference between James Neve and Adam Delmont, though, is very narrow indeed, isn't it? That's that sort of half a second. But as we've been mentioning, this lap is so long that there is so many opportunities to both lose out on time and pick it up at the same time. So Adam Delmont, who's currently out there, putting in some good sector times. He's got a good sector 3, sector 4 as well. And no, actually, sorry, on that was on the previous lap. He's actually going slightly slower in this particular lap. Lars Fischer has just come back out of the pits. That means he's on a fresh set of tyres and probably is meaning business. James Neve is in the pits after 5 laps. He seems to have been finished with his qualifying. If he gets out now, he might be able to get 1 flying lap in, but it's going to be a bit of a stretch. One driver out there who's probably not going to be too impressed with his performance so far is James Clark. That's Chris Dixon. That's James Clark in the Swift Cooper racing car. He's sat currently, even though as a pro driver, he's sat there behind Colin Sampson and Dan Skinner, both an AM and a Pro-Am driver. And more for pride than anything else, the pros don't like to be beaten by those particular drivers. classifications of drivers. Even though James Clark did put in his fastest lap of the session last time round, he's not going to be too impressed. What is impressive, though, is I've just realised that Colin Sanson and Dan Skinner, and Dan Skinner's just ruined my fun little stat, had put in exactly the same lap time down to the 1,000th of a second. Dan Skinner has just gone 800ths of a second quicker, though, which has promoted him into the top 5. Doesn't appear to be any improvement for Adam Delmont or Adam McNally, though. This could be a potentially a bit of a slow evening, but I'm sure a lot of these drivers will spark themselves up, pick themselves up in time for the race. Lars Fischer, the only driver who is currently in the 2 minutes 7 second mark, and Wan Chi Lin is his only teammate tonight. Jason Cooper doesn't appear to have turned up for the events this evening, which is a bit of a shame, but it does mean, as I said before, gives everybody else a bit of an opportunity to potentially take a race win. Again, a bit of a glance back to the results from last week. I mentioned that Jason Cooper took the race victory in race number 1 ahead of Adam Delmont and Wan Chi Lin. In race 2, Jason Cooper ahead of Adam Delmont and Wan Chi Lin. Even though they had that reverse grid race, I'm not entirely sure what the reverse grid was, because it doesn't bring it up on the statistics, which is a bit of a shame. On pole position, though, was Colin Sanson, so I can figure it out that way, can't I? That meant it was a full reverse grid. A full reverse grid of, I believe, they had 10 drivers, so top 10 reverse grid. Not too dissimilar to this evening. Adam Delmont got the fastest lap of the race as well that time. In race number 3, I mentioned Andy McEwen took the top step with James Clark and Lars Fischer alongside him on the podium. Lars Fischer was on pole position, actually, so the fact that he didn't take the top step probably means it was a damn good race, put it that way. Adam Delmont got the fastest lap. And in the final race of the evening, saw Adam Delmont on pole, but it wasn't good enough to keep Jason Cooper and Andy McEwen at bay. Adam Delmont ended up coming in 3rd place. Fastest lap, of course, went to Jason Cooper. And that is everything that happened at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. We'll be able to bring you up to date with the overall standings as well, and it's no surprise that Jason Cooper is at the top, but he might not be there for too much longer after this evening. Lars Fischer is in 2nd place, only 85 points back, and they get a lot of points per evening here at the BSR MX5 trophy. You probably end up getting well over 100 points if you score fairly well. Chris Dixon, he's about to come across the line. Is he able to set a legal time? Not just a fast time. Yes, he does. A legal time puts him, well, in exactly the same place that he was before, to be fair, in 8th spot. But this time, at least he can go away from this in 45 seconds time saying, yes, I completed a full lap. Lars Fischer's about to set another time as well, by the way, but it doesn't look like it's going to be any faster. It doesn't need to be any faster either. A 2 minute and 7.5 seconds is good enough at the moment for pole position. I'm sure he'll be fairly pleased about that one. James Neave hasn't set a lap since, well, about 5 minutes ago, actually. He came back in for the pits and decided that that was enough for him. Didn't need it. Brushed his hands off, and off he goes to get ready for race number 1, which is coming up in a couple of minutes' time. If you are joining us, then I do apologise. I say apologise. Ed is unable to join us this evening, which is a bit of a shame, I grant you. I am missing my little co-buddy, my co-commentator buddy. Apparently he's having GPU problems, which you know, can't be helped in this day and age. We had the same thing when we were over in Greece. Gave us a heart attack, it did, because all of a sudden everything was set up, and all of a sudden the computer decides it doesn't want to work, and everything you've done, everything you prepared for, goes down the toilet somewhat. So yes, it will be just me this evening as Adam Delmont decides that it's not going to be a faster lap. Cuts off the course, and James Clark will come across the line. Dan Skinner is out there as well, ready to complete a lap. James Clark does complete his lap, but I don't think it's an improvement. No, it isn't. So he's stuck in 7th place. Chris Dixon is the last car rotating on the circuit. Up the big hill now towards the back straight. MX5s really do struggle up that hill. They'll need a little bit of a slipstream assistance if there's any opportunities for an overtake. The little 1.8 litre engines just don't quite have the muscles that big GT3 cars or 2 litre engines have these days. In other race cars, Chris Dixon taking a very narrow line. He gets all out of shape on the exit because of it, and he cuts the corner. That might be why we haven't seen many fast laps or legal laps actually, at all by Chris Dixon. So race 1 will be coming up on your screens in a couple of minutes' time, just as soon as James Clark and Chris Dixon decide to call it a day, which even though they have cut the corners most of the course, they have decided to carry on. And then first of 4 15-minute races will be up on your screens, and hopefully will be as exciting as ever. BSR MX5, even though there are only 10 drivers here this evening, they don't tend to disappoint when it comes to the all-out action. You can probably expect them to be 2 wide, 3 wide, going around the outside, probably trying to jump over each other, proper Fernando Alonso style, and giving it all they can. James Clark is just retiring to the pits, so that means we can get ready to bring you the grid for race number 1. The race 2, 3 and 4 will all be reverse grids, but of course, like usual, race 1 is dictated by the qualifying order. So unfortunately, Ed couldn't get his PC working. Fingers crossed he'll be here next week though. And as we wait for the session to advance, we can get some highlights of some of the Virginia International Raceway on your screen. If you haven't watched it that much, I don't blame you. As I've mentioned a few times, it's not one of those tracks that is often used on iRacing, or particularly MX5 racing. Quite a lot of the time, especially with things like the BSR, we sort of stick to European circuits, European and sort of British-based circuits mainly, with little trips over the pond every so often to the likes of Suzuka. Not Suzuka. I was thinking of Suzuka, but that's not over the pond. It's gone out of my head. Laguna Seca. That's the one I was looking for. And other tracks like that. But obviously, in this particular calendar, we're quite often over in America more often than we're not. And unfortunately, that has led to slightly lower grid sizes. Speaking of the lower grid, speaking of the grid, in fact, Lars Fischer on pole position ahead of James Neve, who joins him alongside him. Adam Delmont is in third with Adam McNally, the 2 Excite drivers, in third and fourth. Dan Skinner, the Pro-Am driver, is in fifth with Colin Sampson leading the way, and the Ams in sixth. James Clark in seventh with Chris Dixon in eighth place with Chris Knox and Yuanqi Lin not able to take part in qualifying. That means they line up at the back of the grid. So a couple of drivers we're just waiting. In fact, half the grid we're waiting for as they start to spawn in the background now. Colin Sampson, James Clark, Chris Knox and Yuanqi Lin. Lars Fischer in the 5-star car. We're often used to seeing the 5-star machine at the lead of the race, but quite often we're used to seeing it being Jason Cooper. Lars Fischer playing, there's no doubt about it, he plays second fiddle quite often to Jason Cooper. And what we've commented on before is the fact that they don't often fight each other that hard either. Even though this is an individual championship, Jason and Lars do have an understanding, it seems, that they're not going to fight with each other at all, which is something that is not, I wouldn't say disappointing, because it's understandable, but it is a bit of a shame in my opinion. We'd quite like to see those two drivers being as fast as they are, to give it a little bit to and from, you know, to try and get into each other's sort of grill and make it a little bit harder for each and everybody else. So with only 10 seconds to go, we're just waiting on Yuanqi Lin at the back end of the field, and then we'll be getting ready for race number 1. As the lights come on, doesn't look like Yuanqi Lin is going to be joining us. It means a sole 5-star car of Lars Fischer is on pole position. And when the lights come out, he is away. It's a good start. It's not a good start by Adam Delmont, though, who got bogged down. Seems to have got away with it in the second phase of this race 1. But as they trundle down towards the first corner, it will be Lars Fischer who will have the inside line ahead of James Neve, who did have a nice little bit of push through third and fourth gear. He wasn't able to take advantage, and in fact gets forced wide. Adam Delmont, the Excite driver, looking at the inside of the year 1 car. But as they head towards turn 3, it's going to be single file line. Or is it, in fact? No. There's a little look from Adam McNally on Adam Delmont there. Wasn't anything to be. And in fact, Delmont pulls away slightly from him. Good clean start from all involved. It looks like Wang Qilin is not able to take the start of the race. So we've only got 9. Chris Dixon's dropped well off the back, unfortunately. Which means Colin Sampson, who is currently at the back of that little pack you can see, but is leading the AM class. That may well continue. Dan Skinner is stayed in 5th place, but Chris Knox has made up 3 positions on that opening couple of corners. And as they go up the hill through the flowing S's, you start to get an idea of maybe who's got the best setup, who's got the most planted car. Chris Knox trying to go faster with the flames on the side. I'm not sure how effective that'll be, but every little helps. Maybe it's just a bit of an intimidation tactic from Chris Knox. Up and around the tree they go then, as they start to take advantage of a little bit of slipstream, I imagine, up the hill. Lars Fisher will be punching a nice big MX5 hole through the air to try and allow a few of the other drivers to take advantage of that. I'm sure Lars won't be hoping that they take advantage. As they pile up the hill, you can see James Neve going to the inside now. It's a brave move. It's a very fast-flowing corner on the left-hand side. We've seen drivers get mixed up because it's immediately into a right-hand downhill curve, and James Neve wasn't able to get that sorted out. Lars Fisher defending it well. So everybody seemingly fairly happy with a single file formation for the time being. The top 5 haven't changed positions at all as Lars Fisher goes to the middle of the track. That is definitely not the racing line, so it's clear evidence that he's trying to shake a couple of drivers off. Maybe not allow them to get it into the slipstream. Nice braking there by Fisher, just hanging James Neve out of the apex a little bit, inviting Adam Delmont to come and have a little bit of a nibble. Come on, have a go if you think you can. Try and give me a little bit of breathing room, because he doesn't have his friends here tonight, does Lars Fisher, to help him out. He needs to be able to do this himself. It looks like he's got James Neve's number for the time being. How long that'll last, I'm not 100% sure, but with the power of the slipstream VIR is rather strong, and in the MX5s, it's always very strong, as Adam Delmont may well get a bit of a push, a helping hand from his teammates. No, in fact, McNally dives out to the right-hand side. He almost got his car very mixed up and managed to get it back straight line. Nicely clipping the curbs there, as everybody, James Neve a little bit hard, I'd say, as he leans on the outside tyre wall. Through the undulations of VIR, it's difficult, that means, to get your braking point right. You can get carried away, but just lose out and potentially take a couple of miles an hour too many times. If you're going uphill in the braking zone, that means you can brake so late, you can get on the power so much earlier as well. Coming up then, this is a lap ago, we saw James Neve had a little bit of a poke on Lars Fisher. This time it's Adam Delmont to have a look to get onto that second step of the podium. He technically has his car ahead. James Neve will be on the defensive inside line, but look at the McNally's going past. The Excite 1, 2 are now 2 and 3 ahead of James Neve, who somewhat will probably be regretting his early braking zone. It's understandable. It's a hard corner when you're on that inside line, but it has meant that he's was left completely vulnerable to not only Adam Delmont, but his teammate Adam McNally as well, as Lars Fisher runs wide in through the final corner. There could be a change for first place. There could be a change for third as well. We'll focus on the one for the potential lead, though. Fisher will be defending. Does Delmont have his entire car up the inside? No. Sorry, alongside? No, he doesn't. He's going to have to do this the hard way. Fisher getting that inside line, but he's going to be on the outside now. Can Delmont take advantage? He sweeps through the left-hander, clips the apex. Lovely stuff by Adam Delmont. He goes from third into first in a matter of corners. Adam McNally has followed him through as well on Lars Fisher, who all of a sudden gets swallowed up. And those two, not only had they both moved past James Neve in the last couple of corners, through the first couple of corners, they've gotten past Lars Fisher as well. So the Excite cars are 1 and 2, and you know what that means. Teamwork time. Katie Eames is supporting Adam Delmont this evening. Fingers crossed for him. Well, he's doing well so far, Katie, that's for sure. Into the race lead, I'm sure, as you were pretty much typing that message. I'm sure he'll appreciate the support. If we're looking at the championship standings as well, which I'll briefly mention, as Lars Fischer looks up the inside on Adam McNally as a late move. Could be a great move, though, as both of the Excite cars get loose on the outside of the circuit. That allows Lars Fischer to slot up the inside and even get a run on Adam Delmont. Both Excite drivers get a little bit excited. Not the first time I'll use that pun this season. You're damn well sure it's not the last either. Lars Fischer then, on the outside. We've seen this been done by Adam Delmont himself. Is he going to get a taste of his own medicine as they flip through the left? It's not even going to be that tight, is it? Delmont got a poor run, as did McNally. And I believe not Lars Fischer, and James Neve tries to take advantage. And just for third place, James Neve gets a little bit crossed up. He loses out fourth as well to Dan Skinner, another one of the Excite cars, but this one running in the Pro-Am. Skinner runs far too wide, though, as he clatters over the curb on the right-hand side of the final corner. And, well, James Neve gets that position back, but doesn't really have any ambition on moving forward because he's got to defend from the driver behind in Chris Knox. I'm keeping an eye on that race lead, by the way, and at the moment they're not. Oh, Chris Knox with a big dive, and as I got so excited I clicked away from him, unfortunately. He going for a big dive up the inside, lost out the position. Adam Delmont, Lars Fischer reignite their fight for a couple of laps ago. Well, not even a couple of laps ago, a couple of corners ago, arguably, and are side by side. This time, Lars Fischer's not having it. He's getting a little bit shaky on the steering wheel. That means he's trying to correct himself and set himself up for the next corner. Through the S's, and it's allowed McNally to get involved as well. McNally forces Lars Fischer wide. See you later, I'm through, and through the S's they go. Adam Delmont leads, and Lars Fischer now has an Excite headache on his hands, but it's not the driver that he wants to be fighting with. It's, in fact, Adam McNally, who is playing a brilliant second gunner at the moment to Adam Delmont, who is third in the championship, like I've just mentioned. James Neve is... Oh, where is McNally going? That's going to be a big slide and a big crash. There is a crash, and we're focusing on the wrong driver here at the moment, and there is Adam McNally. He just got all kinds of crossed up as they went through the S's, and once you get the rear end out, you're just constantly overcorrecting. And unfortunately, Adam McNally, who I just said it, he was playing brilliant rear gunner. Well, he's no longer doing that role, is he? That has released not only James Neve, it's not only released Adam Delmont, it's released Chris Knox as well, and James Clark, actually. So Chris Knox has gained 6 positions from the start of this race. Lars Fischer has lost 7, unfortunately. He started on pole. Wan Shi Lin is the only driver that didn't take part in the race so far, so he is out. Adam McNally's gone back to the pit lane, and that's a bit of a shame, isn't it? So we maybe have a quick look at exactly what happened to Adam McNally. Is this potentially him coming into the pits? I think he might just pull over and retire the car. Yeah, so there he is. We'll see how he goes off track. So again, this is actually after the incident, isn't it? So that's probably when he decides that this is no longer drivable. Just trying to see if I can see when he actually goes off the circuit. It didn't register as a crash, unfortunately. Let's see if we can view it from this far back. So this is Adam McNally and Lars Fischer going at it. Was this a couple of laps ago? I feel that... Oh, no, there it is. There's the big snap. There's the incident. There's the contact with Lars Fischer. Chris Knox did well to avoid it, actually, as did James Clark, and then avoid each other as well. But yeah, just a lot of moving and shaking from the rear end, shall we say. So nearly 2/3 of this race done. And things have calmed down just a touch, but this is probably the closest, well, this is the closest battle that we have out on the circuit at the moment. Adam Delmont's got a tasty 4.3 second lead ahead of James Neve, who doesn't look like he's able to catch. And then the fight for 3rd/4th is on the cards. Let's see how they can deal with it. This is pretty much all for different variety of classification. Chris Knox just ahead of James Clark. Those two are pro drivers, and Dan Skinner is 5th, as James Clark just gets a little bit crossed up. But Dan Skinner is a pro-am driver, so not involved with the point scoring of either of the two ahead of him. He's already won the class. All he really wants to do is get involved and have a story to tell by the end of the race, I'm sure. There's a number of the cars, again, veer off to the right-hand side. I thought that was to break the slipstream, but actually I think that is the optimal racing line, because you can see it curving round the tree. As Dan Skinner rather easily gets past James Clark. I'm not 100% sure why that was. It wasn't obvious enough that there would have to be a slowdown, but it wasn't exactly hard for Dan Skinner. Very questionable. I'm looking at my highlight ticker to see if there was any off tracks or penalties. No, just a slow James Clark, unfortunately. He is in the top 5. And again, Dan Skinner getting past him really doesn't matter in terms of his championship point scoring. So I suppose he can take it easy. Fastest lap of the race has actually gone to Dan Skinner, to be fair to him, on that last lap as well, at 2:07.97. Remember, there was only one driver in qualifying to get into the 2:07s. That was Lars Fischer. So the fact that Dan Skinner has done it during a race is rather impressive. Those tyres will be fairly worn out as Chris Knox almost tries to prove my point. I'm ahead of him. On to the back straight then with 12.5 minutes nearly done. 2.5 minutes to go on this particular first race here at Virginia International Raceway for round 5 of the BSR MX5 Championship. Remember, there are races 2, 3 and 4 coming up for you. They will be a reverse grid of some sort. I'm going to go ahead and guess a top 10 reverse grid of some sort as well, because there are only 10 drivers. What I would say is, without really noticing, James Neve has been caught by a significant amount by Chris Knox. On the last lap, it was a 2:09.4 for James Neve. Chris Knox was a 2:08.5, so a full second, well, 9/10 I'll give him it. And all of a sudden, we could be having a little battle on here in the last lap, potentially. Potentially could be, actually. 2 minutes to go. And looking up the inside is a Chris Knox, a charging Chris Knox. That's the 7th place that he's managed to gain so far this race. He slots up the inside, nicely hooks the braking zone up, and gets the car stopped and turned as well, and he gets that 2nd place. Really good driving by Chris Knox. As I said, almost went under the radar then. A little bit. Oh, is there a big snap movement there? And I think it is. Here comes James Neve. No, not quick enough. Maybe James Neve decided he needed to come off the power a little bit as well, just to avoid a potentially spinning Chris Knox. It is always a bit annoying that when you see a driver ahead of you have a little bit of the moment. You think, okay, I've got an opportunity here. This could be brilliant. I could get past them. And then you realise it's probably sensible that if you lift off as well, otherwise there's a big opportunity for them to come along and crash into you. Very frustrating indeed. So the battle for second isn't over necessarily, but it has somewhat died down. And Chris Knox, he seems to have that car right on a knife edge. Could be an incident coming up. You never know. With 40 seconds or 35 seconds left to go, actually, by the time I get my sentence out. Adam Delmont only has 1/3 of the lap to go, and I believe that means we will be on the final lap of the race. So I don't think James Neve will have an opportunity. If he's not going to do it now, I don't think he'll have an opportunity to retaliate. Could be wrong. It depends how much Adam Delmont decides to slow up. Oh, James Neve on the inside, going down the hill. A really late move on the brakes there forces Chris Knox out wide and into the clutches of Dan Skinner. James Neve takes that 2nd place, and with only 3 seconds remaining, that means Adam Delmont will be a race victor. Katie Eames in the Facebook chat will be very pleased about that, I'm sure, and Adam Delmont will be particularly pleased as well. He's not shy of the top step of the podium this year, Adam Delmont. It certainly does help when Jason Cooper and Andy McEwen aren't around, as the rest of them file over the line and give a little bit of a theatrical spin and crash over the over said finish line. Colin Sampson looks like he's going to come across to take the AM class victory as well. Lars Fischer, a somewhat broken and forgotten man in this particular race. Sorry, not in the championship, of course not. He is second in the championship. Crawls across the line to take the checkered flag. And last but not least is Chris Dixon. Struggled so far this evening, I think, as Chris, through qualifying, wasn't able to hook it together. Maybe hasn't done many practice laps. In the race, seemed to struggle as well. I'll tell you what, the driver that will be hurting from that particular race is Lars Fischer, actually. Because there's an opportunity here for Lars to jump ahead of his 5-star teammate in the championship, but it didn't come about, unfortunately, for him. Not in this first race, anyway. So, race results then. Confirmation that Adam Delmont took the victory. Actually, no, we'll do the reverse grid first. My apologies, I'm always forgetting this. There we go, and if we bring up, well, it's not 14, is it? It's 10 is the maximum number. And we'll continue with 6 to 10th, actually. Let's generate the number, and it's a top 8 reverse grid, which, as you can see in front of you, is Chris Dixon. And we'll get on to the reverse grid. Hopefully, whoever's organising the reverse grid is seeing that on their screen right now. Adam Delmont then took the race victory, 3.5 seconds ahead of James Neve. Chris Knox was in 3rd place in the end. Dan Skinner in 4th, but won the Pro-Am category with James Clark in 5th, and Colin Sampson winning the AM class in 6th place. Lars Fischer was in 7th in the end, as I said, as an opportunity for him this evening. Didn't quite happen for him, unfortunately, in that first race, but there is a long way to go. Chris Dixon is in 8th and will be starting on pole position for race 2 of the evening. Adam McNally finished 3 laps down after getting all kinds of out of shape up the hill, with Yanchi Lin unfortunately not taking the start. Carl Felvers has jumped into the YouTube chat. Evening. How was Greece? Greece was brilliant, to be honest. Absolutely fantastic. Loads of really nice people there. Plenty of entertainment. And hopefully, Carl, you enjoyed racing at Virginia International Raceway. And with Andy McEwen covering you solo. He probably is doing a better job than I am right now. But, yeah, fingers crossed. We'll both be there for the finale tomorrow. So, yeah, if anybody out there is wondering what I'm on about, Carl Felvers in the YouTube chat does actually race in the VRRC MX5 Cup, which is coming to a close tomorrow. And we'll be live from 7:30. I should know that. 7:30. I should know it. It's been the same for the past year and a half. 7:30 on the VRRC YouTube channel. Head over there and you can catch up all the action. My coverage with Andy McEwen, who normally races in this series, covering Carl Felvers and Max Edmondson. Sorry, not Max Edmondson, doesn't race there anymore, unfortunately, but quite a few other drivers that may be familiar to BSR. Right, we're going to go to a very quick break, unless I have anybody to talk to in the interview waiting room. No, I am as lonely as I ever have been in here for this evening. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Time for more BSR MX5 action. Welcome back, everybody. There was a bit of an extended break there as, well, normally my co-commentator Ed tells the organisers what the reverse grid is. I always assumed that they just watched the stream and then they just went on whatever came up. But apparently Ed always told them, so I didn't tell them for a good 5 minutes, and then therefore the server didn't get put up for another delayed 5 minutes sort of thing. So, yeah, bit of a shame. Apologies about that one, but we are here and ready for, in about 30 seconds, for race number 2 of the evening. And, well, we've had a couple of dropouts, unfortunately, but Wanchi Lin appears to have turned up, which is quite good for the championship. And Adam Delmont, who obviously took that race victory, is doing pretty well in practice, but he's still here. James Clark, who came second, is still here as well. And it looks like Adam McNally has dropped away from us, to be fair, which is a bit unfortunate. Maybe he wasn't very particularly impressed with some of the driving standards. I'm not entirely sure if there was anything wrong with the driving standards in that one. There was good action, but there wasn't enough sort of hip and shoulder to really suggest that quitting is the best option, in my opinion. But hey ho, we're going into it. So 8 drivers for us, and well, we're about to grid up. So let's have a look at said grid. It is a top 8, which sees Chris Dixon on pole position with Lars Fischer in second place. It's actually a full reverse grid now, ironically. Colin Sampson is in 3rd with James Clark in 4th. Dan Skinner, the Pro-Am, in 5th place with James Neve in 6th. 7th is Adam Delmont, and Wanchi Lin is in 8th place. As I mentioned before, unfortunately there is no Ed May with me this evening. It's just myself, myself and I. And we'll be able to bring you all the action, hopefully, as the evening progresses. As the lights come on, I've seen a couple of YouTube and Facebook comments. I'll respond to them in a second. But first of all, I'm sure you can understand we've got some racing to do here at Virginia International Raceway. It's Chris Dixon, who has somewhat struggled on the qualifying and in race number 1. He already dropped backwards. He's dropped behind Lars Fischer, who I'm sure, starting from the front row for the second race in a row, will be hoping that he can get a little bit better fortune than he did in race number 1. And he's already into the race lead, with a little bit of a squirrely moment there, though, on the rear end, and he actually had to slam the brakes on, which caused a lot of other drivers to equally slam the brakes on. Colin Sampson is in second place in the bright green 967 machine, and well, you're not going to be missing that one, are you, Colin Sampson? Oh, as Chris Dixon goes around. Well, what goes around comes around, and hopefully Chris Dixon will have a little bit of a better race in races 3 and 4. Dan Skinner in 3rd place, the lone Pro-Am machine, and keeping at the moment James Clark, James Neve, and Adam Delmont, Wanchi Lin of the Pro category behind him for the time being. How much longer that can go on for, I'm not entirely sure, because here comes Dan Skinner under the bridge and up the inside. Now this is where we saw Adam McNally get a little bit crossed up earlier on as they're hitting the curbs. Nicely seems to have managed to ridden the wave there. It really is like riding a wave here at Virginia. Very, very sort of bumpy, but equally fantastic fun if you hook it all up right, which is exactly what Lars Fischer is doing in the lead of this race by 1.6 seconds, as the rest of them decide to queue up on top of each other as they go round the tree and up to the back straight. Carl Felvis, I'll read through your report of last week's race in a couple of minutes' time. It looks like you had an up and down sort of evening. Hopefully tomorrow it will be a little bit more smooth for you in that endurance race. As we see in the background is that Adam Delmont on the inside of James Neve, and Wanchi Lin trying, and slightly failing at the moment, to get through the pack. He's stuck in 7th place. I'm not entirely sure how much practice he's done, as James Neve tries to shake the rear end to scare maybe a little bit of Adam Delmont, our race 1 winner. They're still going side by side. These two did look like they were going to have a right good fight amongst each other as the skins were loaded in and out. Apologies about that. Oh, Colin Sampson, where are you going, good sir? Please don't come on the track dangerously. No, he doesn't. There's all the different liveries that seem to be taking their time loading up. I do apologise about the flickering. It really takes you out of the realism somewhat, but here we are. Technology is a dark art at the end of the day. Wanchi Lin going on the brakes early there, deciding that he doesn't want to get involved in any sort of shenanigans through turn 1 between these two drivers, who are still side by side. This is the fight for 4th place. I know it looks at the rear end of the field, and that's because it is. There isn't that many drivers here. It's for literally the halfway margin of... sorry, it's the margin to get into the top half, I should say, as James Neve gets far too comfortable with being on the grass there, shall we say. That's allowed Adam Delmont to break away slightly. And he's got James Clark up ahead of him and Dan Skinner, who both of which probably admit that they're not necessarily as fast as Adam Delmont. Race winner from earlier on. Lars Fischer, though, if his qualifying pace is anything to go by, really shouldn't be caught now. He's got this kind of gap towards the sort of, I wouldn't even say, we're not even anywhere near the first third of this race being completed, but he seems to be pulling that gap away further and further. 2.7 seconds now as Wan Qilin gets on the grass. Is that a look at the inside? That's a very, very late look by Adam Delmont. He somewhat scared James Clark out of that one, I believe, because if Clark probably had every intention and every right to go for that corner, but he had to be careful that he wasn't going to get nudged out the way. Climbing the hill, though, there's an opportunity to retaliate for James Clark. He's going to try and take it. He's got two options: go to the left and be on the outside for the crucial right hand down the hill, or try and hang it out to the right hand side and dive up his inside. He's going to go for neither at the moment. He's going to measure himself, take the early braking zone, and get down the hill in one piece, with Wan Qilin chasing just behind. And in fact, actually look at the pace that Wan Qi had on James Clark. I think Clark will probably be a little bit sweating under the brow now. Michael King, hello. Good evening to you, good sir. Hope you are doing well. We'll be back actually this Saturday, Mike. Probably more interesting for you than racing, I will admit. I know you're into the racing a little bit. But we had the handball highlight show, handball hits, on Saturday night at 7 p.m. So catch it there. We'll be live with some highlights from the handball coverage that we've been doing. Nice light move there by James Clark. Sorry, by Wan Qilin, but it wasn't quite to be. Who was that going wide? It was Dan Skinner. That's allowed a couple of drivers to nudge their way through. Wan Qilin is now up to 4th place. James Clark holds on to that 3rd, with Adam Delmont now in 2nd place. To be honest, I sort of missed what happened to Dan Skinner, though. I'm going to see if we can catch a very quick replay. Going through turn 1, isn't it? Is it just battling with his teammate Adam Delmont? I think it was, As they were going through the first corner, I think Delmont had the inside line, and unfortunately Dan Skinner just didn't have the grip or the braking zone to be able to retaliate. So as they go uphill through the S's now, it's Delmont in the lead of this little pack. Clark almost the cork in the bottle. Wan Qilin leaning on the tyres and on the outside tyre wall as Clark goes wide. Or is that just a different line? I think he might just be going wide through the first apex so we can get a nice straight exit out, which is not a bad thing. Sometimes an old saying in motorsport, slow in, fast out, is always the way to go, especially when you're on full power for such a long amount of time and up a great hill like the one we've got here at Virginia. We want to be taking that wide line, straight line in the last apex and get on the power as early as humanly possible. Get that lovely drive up the hill. Thank you very much, K-Teams, for the share on the stream as well. It's nice to have a couple more people get involved and have a little bit of a chat. I was hoping to have a little bit of a chat to Carl Felvers, who's in the YouTube chat, but it's been so hectic here in race number 2, and that's the thing with BSR. You can have all a small grid if you like, but they're always going to try something. They're always going to give you something to watch, something to talk about at least. Speaking of which, James Clark getting a little bit loose on the rear end yet again. Seems to be struggling with that rear grip. Maybe it's a setup thing, and that means he's being taken advantage of here by all 3 drivers who were chasing him. Dan Skinner very late on the brakes, almost getting into the back of Wan Qilin. James Lee goes wide. That allows Lin up the inside through the first couple of corners. Neve will be on the inside when they dive into the left sweeper. Is the damage already going to be done? Lin on the outside, very, very brave to be hanging around there because it's almost a double apex. You have to trust the other driver, and Wan Qilin, I said it was going to be brave. And, well, he's managed to keep his foot in it for the time being. And somehow, I'm not entirely sure how, Wan Qilin gets onto the podium steps. That's incredible driving. I have absolutely no idea how he's managed to get away with that, but he did. He kept his foot in it. He kept it in a straight line and somehow managed to then outbrake, even with dirty tyres, James Neve, who we've seen maybe in the race before. It's not necessarily the bravest when it comes to late braking up into tricky areas of the circuit, but even then I am slightly surprised. No wide moments for any of these drivers just yet. How is Adam Delmont getting on? Well, Lars Fischer is continuing to pull away slightly as this selection or gaggle of cars is turning around the big tree and back up the hill. It's easily the closest battle that we've got here out on circuit. The driver that you can see just in the background of your shot there is, I believe, Colin Sansom. In fact, actually, is that Chris Dixon? No, Chris Dixon is unfortunately 30 seconds behind the drivers that we're currently watching. So that's definitely not Chris Dixon. That is going to be Colin Sansom. That is in the AM class, by the way. Colin Sansom leading the AM class. There are already 2 drivers, so it's easy to be forgiven for not getting too excited about it, especially as Chris Dixon's track record at this particular venue has not been that brilliant so far. Is this a interesting looking Dan Skinner we've got on our hands here with the Year 1 driver James Neve getting a little bit slow, got a little bit wide on the final corner. They come across the line, the slipstream in full effect. No, oh, Neve actually with a big lunge. Oh my days, and there was always going to be contact. Wan Shilin gets turned around and James Clark goes through. James Clark and Dan Skinner both go through and, well, James Neve drives off. I have a feeling that James was trying to hold onto the brakes for a little bit longer, but I don't know if Wan Shilin's actually going to get back going in a straight line here. And that was a huge lunge by it. There we go. Lin's actually back to the pits. After not taking part in the first race or qualifying, he probably doesn't think that anything's really going to go right for him this evening. But this was far too late on the brakes by James Neve. And to be fair, it looked like, we're going to go on board with him, it looked like there was a potential that he might get it stopped, but at the end of the day, he might have got it stopped when he was actually heading, he might have kept it on the track. But that is different when there is a driver there. You also can't hit a driver out of the way just to stay on the track. Yeah, he's fully locked up there, yeah. I mean, as I said, he would have stayed on the track, but that's not a good enough excuse to be hitting into another driver. He basically used him as a brake there. And, well, I know I've very strongly given my opinion on that already. A commentator shouldn't give their opinion on contact or anything like that, because it's down to the stewards. It was a long way back, that's all I'm saying. The stewards, we do have a stewarding system here at BSR. People can launch appeals and things will get looked at, but obviously we don't have professional stewards. It is the opinion of some of the organisers and the admins here at BSR that will gift out those punishments. Quite a lot of the punishments are not being able to take part in next week's qualifying session. I don't think we get many sort of time limit penalties. I don't think you can really give them in iRacing. So a lot of it is punishment for the next circuit, and rarely do we see any sort of big hoo-ha's about it or anything like that. People tend to think that, you know what, it's quite often a fair judgment. I think it's rare that people really kick up a massive fuss. So now that the action's died down just a touch, Kyle, I'll get back to what you were saying. Putting the softs on accidentally when the mediums was the optional. It was the option that you really wanted. That is a bit gutting, to say the least. How did you get on in that race, or was that the one you got third in, or was a third in the reverse grid race when you actually stuck the right tyres on? Yeah, the timer did also keep going up. As I said, that was because they hadn't put the session up, unfortunately. But next time round, we will do that a little bit quicker, so the gap in between is a little less. Mike, as I said, good evening. And if you're wondering what I was talking about before in terms of the handball stuff, so Jacko Racing is now one of the proud places you can watch handball in the UK. So with Live Sport now and England Handball, we have struck up a deal that handball around the UK does get broadcasted. And I know this is a motorsport stream or an EU sports stream or whatever you want to call it, but just bear with me because there's not that much going out on the track at the moment. Handball's a big deal for me. It's actually my main sport. Motorsport is my second sport, arguably. But it just so happens there's a lot more opportunity in motorsport than there is in handball in the UK. But that is something that we're trying hard to change. Ian sees the opportunity and sees the potential in handball. He's fairly new to it. He runs our Live Sport now. I'm very much keen to push on. It was actually my ambition to go to university and study sport business management, so I could one day become CEO of England Handball. I then realised that I think I could probably do a better job in helping handball than being involved with England Handball, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring it up and push some money into it. So each month, you will have seen potentially earlier this month that we were down at Goodisby Park for West London Eagles versus Great Dane. Oh, not Great Dane, sorry, London GD. I don't like me calling it Great Dane, even though that's what it was. And we'll be bringing on Saturday the handball highlight show, or handball hit show, I think they're calling it now, actually. Where it's basically a match of the day style podcast where me and Ian get onto the podcast 7 o'clock on Saturday. We do it live from various webcams and my office and everything like that. And then we invite other people to come in and have a chat. We analyse the games. We talk about the state of handball in the UK, and see how it could be better, how England handball are changing it, whether we think it's beneficial or not. And we also get the opinions of coaches and players and hopefully fans as well in the chats to get a little bit of to and from the audience as well. So that's sort of what we're hoping to do. On Saturday will be our first show, and fingers crossed we'll be able to do it every single month. The next handball, if you're interested, that you can watch on Jacko Racing as well as everywhere else that Live Sport now stream to, is on the 20th of November. It was told to me today. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to release it. Well, they won't be watching this. It's on the 20th of November, and it's Birmingham versus Nottingham in the Northern Premier League handball. So, yeah, more handball on your way. Please do tune in and watch it. It's a fantastic sport. Me and Ian will be on the commentary yet again for it. Enough of my plugging. I've just realised that I've whittled on for a good 3 minutes there about handball, about something that is nothing to do with the sport that's actually on your screen, which is motorsport, esports, and you know what I mean, sort of thing. And that has allowed Lars Fischer to just chill out. Maybe he's having a watch of the stream. Maybe he's listening about handball. Well, whatever he's doing, it's working. Because he's about to take the checkered flag here. He qualified on pole. He didn't get the race 1 victory. It wasn't the race he wanted at all, in fact. But he will take the race 2 victory. Lars Fischer then absolutely dominant once he got to the front. Adam Delmont comes across the line as well in second place. That's 2 podiums in 2 races for him. James Clark is a very happy third, I'm sure, with Dan Skinner winning the Pro-Am in 4th. James Neve in 5th with Colin Sanson in 6th. And then we have, unfortunately, got to wait a little bit of a while for Chris Dixon, but he seems to be learning the track a little bit better. KT Eames saying that it's, one, about the incident before with Wan Chi Lin. Likely to go down as an avoidable incident and a penalty incoming. Left it far too late into the corner. As I said, a commentator should never give his opinion. But I agree. She also says that good to hear, good to get it out, as you never know who's watching and might tune into the next live. Exactly. Yeah, so Saturday, be there. I'm giving all the plugs today. VRRC, that's not even on my channel. But I'm involved with it, so I like it. Chris Dixon finishes up, which means we can do one thing, and that's get that random number generator up, because I'm going to do it a little bit quicker now. There aren't 10 drivers, unfortunately. So I'm going to do a maximum of 8, but I'm going to drop this down to 5. So, yeah, it could be a top 5, could be a top 8. And it is a top 5 reverse grid. So I'm just before reading the stats out, because I want it to be done nice and quickly. Apologies, my awful ability, my internal RAM in my brain means that I can't do more than 2 things at once. Definitely don't have 16 gigs of RAM. Right, Lars Fischer took home the race victory, 4.13 seconds. Yeah, that is right. Ahead of Adam Delmont, who came home in 2nd. He won the earlier race. James Clark was in 3rd with Dan Skinner coming in 4th and winning the Pro-Am. Unsurprisingly. James Neve was in the top 5 with Colin Sampson winning the AM. Chris Dixon in 7th place. And Wan Chi Lin, unfortunately, another DNF for him this evening. He finishes in 8th. Right. That is all we've got time for race number 2. I'm going to see if anybody wants to come in and have a little chat to us. At this rate, I'm genuinely going to ask, I'm just going to ring up Mike. Or Kyle, I'm going to invite you into the BSR server or something like that. Just a chat. Because I'm sure everybody else is getting bored of my own voice. All I've done all week in Greece is talk. And now here I am, talking on my own again. I have made sure that me and Andy are there tomorrow in the VRRC thing. I was apparently he did tell VRRC that Andy. This is 2 weeks ago that Andy did tell VRRC that I wouldn't be here. He was going to be in France visiting his family, which is a poor excuse. No, I'm kidding. It's an absolutely brilliant excuse, to be honest. But I didn't get told that until 30 seconds until we went live into the broadcast. So I had no kind of extra notes prepared or anything like that. And then today, obviously I left Andy in the lurch last week, but he did know that we were going to Greece. And then today, unfortunately, Ed didn't figure out that he wasn't able to join us until quite late in the day as well. So I do apologise. It was a little bit ad hoc. But, I tell you what this is. It's a little bit of a throwback. It's a little bit of a throwback to when I first started covering esports and commentating in general, because I haven't given up, but I've sort of got away with the traditional commentating style because, frankly, we might as well just have a chat. It's almost use it as a podcast, which is what I do for endurance races. And it's almost a throwback to when I first started it because quite a lot of people... Casey Eames actually might be one of the few that remembers when I started, and we broadcast on this channel for the Next Gen PMRE series. I was doing that on my own as well. And I remember it was during lockdown, and I had to figure out how to do the broadcasting, which isn't an easy job on its own. And then I had to figure out how to commentate, which I'd never done before either. And I was a little bit cheeky. I lived on my own, and my one friend, who also lived on his own, offered to come and help me with the with the cameras and stuff like that. So I genuinely had to set up 2 keyboards and 2 mouse. We did do it as best as we could. We sat at the opposite end of my desk, which is a pretty big desk, and I would sterilise the mouse and the keyboard when he came in. And he could use the toilet, which I left untouched unless he used it. So only he was using it because we had more than one toilet. And he would come in and he would do the cameras for me and the broadcast while I would try and commentate. And after about 5 or 6 weeks, I got used to it and I could do it on my own sort of thing. But I do remember really struggling. It was all solo comms, and I would just witter on and on and on and on. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. So I hope you don't mind too much. But we'll be back in a couple of minutes' time for race number 3 of the evening. We've hit the halfway mark, and hopefully the 3rd and 4th race will be just as exciting. Hello everybody and welcome back to Virginia International Raceway. I'm just going to do that one more time. There we go. I'm leaning into it. We're going to try something slightly different here, but we are going into the grid straight away. So I'm going to hide my face and I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Right, James Neve then on pole position will be... Oh, I'm just making sure that's muted. James Neve on pole position with Dan Skinner in second place. James Clark in third and Delmont in fourth. Lars Fisher in 5th with Colin Sampson 6th. Chris Dixon in 7th place. We have lost, unfortunately, yet another driver. Trust me, 7 is good. At one point, up until about 2 minutes ago, there was only 4. I did suggest that I'll be sure we're going to do a race with only 4 drivers. But 7 then turned up, so here we are. And you can hear the... cars revving up on the right-hand side of track. And it looks like it'll be James Neve to get us underway. And unfortunately, we haven't got Adam Delmont as we set off there. So there are only 6 drivers here for us this evening. Which is, as I said, a bit of a shame at this point. But, you know, fingers crossed they'll be back a little bit more later on. James Neve with a good start. Dan Skinner in 2nd place. Oh, is that Lars Fisher going very wide? I think it may well be. He is indeed going very wide, and that's allowed James Clark to retain his 3rd place. It looked like at one point that Skinner was going to be able to take that away, but it hasn't to be. It wasn't to be even. Oh, bit of a spinner in the background. I think that is Chris Dixon. Adam Delmont has gotten going, by the way. So we are up to 7 drivers, but... yeah, Adam Delmont for some reason not taking the start of the race. That means it's going to be fairly difficult, I would say, for him to be able to get into the top 3, but not impossible. It's fairly difficult. If you're wondering what I was doing with the webcam, well, all of a sudden we had to go live, and I was fiddling around with it, and it was a bit of a plan that I thought, oh, maybe I'll bring that out if needs be, but didn't mean to have it at the start. James Clark didn't really think he would be doing that kind of action either right at the start of this race, and looks like there was an attacking Lars Fisher who couldn't quite get past him. James Neve still leads the way from Dan Skinner, with Adam Delmont all the way down in 6th place and a long way back, 13 seconds back actually. You can see him in the background there. There is pretty much guaranteed that there is going to be a different winner today in race number 3. We've already had Adam Delmont. We've already had Lars Fisher. So actually there's no guarantee with that one, because Lars Fisher is now past James Clark. Dan Skinner in 2nd place, and then James Neve, of course. James Neve leading. I'm sure he'll be pleased about that one. As they come across the line then, Neve sets the fastest lap of the race, but it's not good enough to fend off a interested and hungry looking Dan Skinner, who wants to take a victory for Excite. And a Pro-Am taking the overall victory used to happen quite a lot back when there were about 30 or 40 cars on the circuit in BSR. Back in lockdown, that's not the way you should be doing it though. You could even hear the contact through your screens, I imagine. Luckily, they all get away with it somewhat, but yeah, almost a bit of a tricky situation for Dan Skinner to explain him out of there in the steward's room. Luckily, James Neve carries on. Don't think there's any damage, which is the important thing, obviously. And they can crack on. With Lars Fisher, that has allowed him to catch up rather significantly. Through the upward S's, it does seem that this race is somewhat split itself. There's a top 3 fight. And then a fight for 4th place with James Clark leading that one ahead of Colin Sampson. And then remember Adam Delmont, who has caught up about 2 or 3 seconds potentially. He's only 10 seconds back from the race lead now actually. So yeah, if these guys start fighting, you never know. That would be one hell of a turn up for the works. Look at where he is, Adam Delmont, all the way in the background there. You would say that he probably hasn't got a hope in hell, but we'll wait and see, I suppose. With James Neve and Dan Skinner going side by side, Skinner will have the inside for the fact for the fast flick left. We'll have the outside for the downward right-hander, but he's already got the move done and dusted. Absolutely no need to be worried about which side of the circuit he's on, but he does need to be on the circuit. That is crucial. And crucially, that is something he hasn't been able to do. And he ends up falling off the circuit. And where is he now? He's just held up Colin Sanson and James Clark, hasn't he, actually? That's a bit of a shame. Oh, his Sanson goes wide as well. And there's an easy move for James Clark to pip up. To pick up, even, I should say. Apologies, I do have a little bit run down, so I am slurring the words slightly. Lars Fischer looks to make it third to second to first, and it's able to do that through the first corner. You can only suspect now, just based on the evidence that we've had so far in these couple of races, that Lars Fischer was able to pull away with this one. In the first race, I do believe that James Neve had a decent amount in the slipstream. He seemed to be able to keep up. But actually, when they get a little bit stretched out, when it comes to hot lap pacing, doesn't quite have the overall speed that Lars Fischer and Adam Delmont seem to have. Where is Adam Delmont, by the way, as well? He's still 10 seconds back from James Neve. So that's not even to Lars Fischer, who's now 10.3 seconds ahead of Adam Delmont. Maybe is Adam getting held up? No, he's still not in no man's land, but I don't think he'll struggle too much to get ahead of Colin Sanson when he catches up to him. Could be wrong. Colin Sanson could put up a bit of a fight. You never know. Focus on the race lead for the time being, but I do spy that Dan Skinner and James Clark are getting nice and close to each other for third position. We'll keep an eye out on that one as well. Nearly 6 minutes into this 15-minute race then, and as I said, it's somewhat taken shape quite nicely. And to be honest, not what we were. It's not unexpected to see that these drivers towards the front end of the field. Adam Delmont is the surprise that he is so far back. What's James Neve going to do? We know he's a little bit tentative into the braking zone there, even though he gets good speed. He doesn't really like trying to make any kind of moves. And unfortunately, that's somewhat his downfall at the moment, because he is able to stick with Lars Fischer. He's not able to really cut the mustard and get past him, and that's something you quite often see with MX-5s. Ooh, there's been a bit of a change further back, I think. No, I think that was just my timing screen getting a little bit glitchy. So if things do die down in this sort of latter half of the race, I do have a bit of a plan to try and shake things up. It's actually based off of an idea that I had quite a while ago, and actually tried to put into place. Didn't quite work out really how I was imagining it, and unfortunately the momentum sort of got lost, and some of the guests that I had lined up didn't respond anymore and things like that. But effectively, I had an idea of a podcast based around the British Touring Car Championship, and I believe I called it the Boring Talk something, so I can't remember what I even called it now. It was a play on BTCC. Boring Talk Concerning Cars, that was what it was called, for a sort of podcast idea. And it was an idea that sort of me and a commentary friend of mine, Chaz, who unfortunately I don't really speak to that much, but because we did work for the same company, and now we've sort of gone our separate ways as the company dissolved, which is a bit of a shame. We sort of keep in touch with them every now and then, which is quite nice. Host a podcast, and we bring on certain drivers to basically have a chat about, and we wanted to do it, or my idea was that we host it over the top of a race that's going on iRacing, and we get the guest driver, or guest whoever it is, to try and come along for the ride and give a little bit of commentary. So they might join Chaz. Chaz might sort of do the intro, they might do the sort of like the race start, and then we chuck it over to see how see if they can do their best Martin Brundle impression, basically, and sort of be relaxed and not worry about sort of language or anything like that. Just sort of crack on. Obviously, nothing horrendously inappropriate, obviously, but try and get the driver in a sort of relaxed frame of mind so you can sort of give their opinions and stuff like that. And I remember we did have Bobby Thompson, and it was good fun, but it just didn't quite have the same sort of atmosphere that I was hoping it would, and unfortunately it sort of lost a bit of momentum. But maybe I'll pick it up one day. Maybe I'm now a bit more relaxed and a bit more used to commentating, and after a couple of the highlights, handball highlight shows sort of thing, a bit more used to sort of podcasting as well like that. So that could be something. But I do have a topic in mind if things do get a not a touch dull. That might be unfair, especially as James Clark is driving like that. Now that's the first time we've seen that happen to anybody. And what on earth did happen to him? Let's have a quick onboard peek, shall we, at James Clark giving our best Tokyo Drift impression. So he comes through the left. He doesn't really even clip the outside. The rear end just goes with James Clark. There was no... I was silent then to wait and see if there was a little bit of sound, but no, not even sound, unfortunately. So James Neve is still within shooting distance of Lars Fischer here. But again, it's not exactly shooting fish in a barrel. It's a bit more difficult than that, and especially as Lars Fischer nicely gets around the tree and normally gets a good exit as well. He's able to pull away. James Clark has had another spin, I believe. Maybe not. I think he's just glitching in and out of existence, which is a bit of a shame. Adam Delmont is going at about the same pace as Lars Fischer at this point, so I'm gonna give this a go. Hello, this is me. As I say that as someone texts me, which is really annoying because I instantly look away from the camera. But yes, welcome. Now the conversation topic I've been thinking of having, I may well look away, by the way, as well. Like I can see that Dan Skinner and Colin Sansom are a lot closer together. So if I look away, it's because I have to do the broadcasting as well. But yeah, we'll try and keep with it. Well, I can see myself in the corner. I can see you. Hello, you. And I can see what's going on my screen. One day, I might even, if this happens again next week, or even for race 4, I might show you what actually goes on my screen. Because it's quite interesting if you've never watched, if you don't know how to broadcast iRacing. It's pretty interesting, really. I have two monitors, basically. One monitor is got OBS, Streamlabs OBS is the software I use. Streamlabs OBS isn't free, OBS is. So Streamlabs OBS I pay a subscription to, and it allows me to have all the fancy graphics like the Be Right Back graphics and stuff like that, which you can generate yourself if you're smart enough to do that, but Streamlabs gives you access to it and makes it easy, and I don't have the knowledge for that. And on my other monitor, they're both 32-inch. I am thinking of swapping them for easier monitors, basically, a couple of 27 inches or even an ultra-wide 49-inch, which is what we were using in Greece. To be honest, I fell in love with it, but it's very expensive, and I'm probably not going to do it. On the other one, I've got my Discord chat, which quite often is, obviously today is a bit useless because I'm not talking to anybody on it, but often is how me and Ed communicate when we don't want to say something on camera, or how at VRRC we communicate with the broadcaster who doesn't talk, and say Rich, who's behind the scene, and the race directors and everything like that, and then obviously me and Andy as well. And then next to that, on the other half of my 32-inch monitor, I've got my controls for the cameras and stuff like that. And if I can figure it out, I'd love to be in between races. I'd love to be able to show you each screen sort of thing, because it would be fairly interesting, I imagine. Even if it's not during the race like this, just sort of a side attraction for waiting around if we are in a break for too long sort of thing. But yeah, well, actually after explaining all that, we're nearly finished. But yeah, at the moment, Lars Fischer leading the way. James Neve is in second place. Then there is a small battle with Dan Skinner and Colin Sansom between third and fourth. And then actually Adam Delmont has just gotten past James Clark as well. So Adam Delmont is up now into the top 5. Now I know it's top 5 is a bit easy to get, I would say, when there's only 7 drivers. But still, worth noting. James Neve with a really good run on here as well. Keep an eye on the screens, not me. Look away from me. I would remove myself, but I'm not hooked up to my stream deck, so I've only just set it up. So I would remove myself, but you can see me getting animated anyway in the webcam. As Dan Skinner as well looks up the inside of Colin Sansom. Sorry, Colin Sansom looked down the outside of Dan Skinner, I should say, actually. Nothing to be. And all of a sudden, 3 races are occurring. And in the last 2 minutes, in the last lap, actually, this is the closer one, because Adam Delmont is pulling away from James Clark and actually chasing up to these 2 drivers. Is there going to be an occasion where these drivers can actually have a fight and Adam Delmont pulls up to the back of them? That would be quite sensational if Adam actually ended up getting a podium. I know he started in 7th. But he did start a good 30 seconds behind everybody else. So I'd still put that down as a damn good drive by Adam. Especially how he doesn't have his teammate Adam McNally, who seems to have dropped out. Didn't think it was worth it for whatever reason. Maybe because there aren't many drivers. Maybe because he got squirrely up the hill and ruined his evening. I'm not entirely sure. The Lars Fischer-James Neve battle has somewhat pulled out a little bit. And because there are so big margin, I am going to give you the intervals. There we go. So you can see that James Neve, Lars Fischer, nearly half a second. Dan Skinner, Colin Sampson, also nearly half a second as well. And in fact, 20 seconds to go. Is this going to be the final lap of the race? Let's have a look. They're going to go down the hill. I think it is. With only 13 seconds to go, they're coming in through the penultimate corner. Lars Fischer has held off for so many laps the attack of James Neve, who, although was relatively quick, never really actually put a full-on move onto Lars Fischer. So it looks like Lars is going to take his second victory of the evening after putting it on pole position as well. I said there was an opportunity for him this evening. He could catch up and overtake Jason Cooper in the points. He's doing it now. He's putting his stamp down. And Lars Fischer takes a victory here at Virginia International Raceway. Actually, he's taking his second. James Neve is in second place, I believe, for the second time as well. Dan Skinner came across the line in third. Colin Sampson was fourth and won the AM category. Adam Delmont was in fifth in the end. He did also get the fastest lap of the race. 2 minutes 7.9. He really turned it on at the end. He was trying. He was pushing. He was trying to give everything to give you guys something to shout about, especially you Excite fans out there. I know you are out there. Right, we are waiting for one last driver. It is Chris Dixon. For some reason, it's not following him. There we go. But while we do that, we're going to bring up the spinning wheel. Well, it's not a spinning wheel anymore, is it? Let's face it. It's a random number generator. We're going to change that to a 7. We're going to bring it up on our screens. And we're going to hit that magic generate button. Are you ready? Are you steady? Let's cook. I promise I clicked it. It's another top 5 reverse grid. Not entirely surprising. It can only be 5, 6, and 7. So, yeah. I mean, it is 5. As Chris Dixon comes across the line. So, I'm very quickly going to type that into the Discord, because that is how I communicate. I did ask as well. I just got a message back. I did ask. I was like, are we sure we're going to run it with 4 people? Like, is that worth, like, doing? Paying for the broadcast and everything else. And they've just hit back with, they're having fun. So I put a top 5 reverse grid, and they were like, oh, wow. It's pretty much a full reverse. It is at all, isn't it, really? Right, let's get up the race results, shall we? You're able to see them on the other side of the screen. Oh, now I'm far too big, aren't I? Let me take care of that, because no one really needs to see me at this point. Lars Fischer then was taking the race victory ahead, 0.3 of a second, the closest actually we've had so far today. Ahead of James Neve. Dan Skinner was in third with Colin Sampson in fourth. Adam Delmont finished in the top 5 with James Clark in 6th. And 7th was Chris Dixon. Top 5 means Adam Delmont on pole position. He's already won a race today. Lars Fischer's won 2. Is this going to be an Adam Delmont victory? Only if he starts actually on the grid. If he starts in the pit lane again, he might struggle. Just realised it's absolutely chucking it down outside. You can't hear anything with these headphones on. Right. Actually, let's have a little bit of a chat, because it's going to take them 5 minutes to actually get this server up. The thing I wanted to chat about... Oh, actually, let's have a look. Let's have... 1 minute. Hello and welcome back, everybody, for the fourth and final time this evening here at Virginia International Raceway for round 5 of the BSR MX5 Trophy. We have 6 drivers. I'm not quite a full reverse grid on our hands, but we do have a grid on our hands, so let me bring it to you. Colin Sampson, the AM driver, takes the the pole position. Dan Skinner is in second place with James Neve in third, Lars Fisher in fourth, James Clark in fifth, and Chris Dixon is in sixth. So, what we can gather from that is that every single driver will be on the podium of some sort. Because Dan Skinner's the only Pro-Am, he'll win, be on the top step. Colin Sampson and Chris Dixon are going to be first and second, so they're going to be on the podium. James Neve, Lars Fisher, and James Clark are the only pro drivers, and therefore will all three be on the podium. So well done to everybody. Congratulations. It was a good effort, good all round, and might as well finish the broadcast here. Everybody gets a medal. Congratulations. No, obviously we're going to go and watch the race because I'm sure they will provide us with some exciting action. And in fact, there's only 5 starting because Colin Sampson decided to start from the pit lane. 5 lights are out and we are racing here for the final time, and it is Dan Skinner who takes away the lead of this race. James Neve is in second place. How long can he stay there for? He's finished second quite a few times. I believe that means Adam Delmont is the driver that we're missing out on, because I thought he was supposed to be on pole position. He's decided that he's not going to take part in this this race. Bit of a strange decision because he is in with a good shout of a championship order, considering Jason Cooper isn't here. So yeah, a bit of a shame that one from Adam Delmont, I would say, because he's missing out on a quarter of the points that he could be picking up to try and take advantage of the fact that Cooper isn't here, if you get what I mean. That's exactly what Lars Fisher is doing. He's doing well, and even though he had a bit of a bad race before, still finished in 7th place. And that is still a decent amount of points, so even if you finish here tonight, you are still going to be doing pretty damn well. Speaking of pretty damn well, that's exactly what James Neve is hoping to do here on Dan Skinner as they go up the hill and through the tricky S's. A nice cut there by James Neve. He doesn't want to do that too much because he will get that slowdown penalty, remember. And as you go up the hill, it's the last place you want to do it, really. Skinner, I thought it was going to go a little bit wide there, but actually managed to hold it all together for the time being. Slows the car down nicely and is able to get the turn in. Lars Fisher just behind him in the pack of 3 here. You'd have to say that he's probably going to be the favourite. And with James Clark maybe not being able to quite make the mark that he was hoping for. But again, it'll be a good finishing position from him. Will it be a good finishing position for James Neve or Dan Skinner, though? That is the question as they go too wide up the hill and into the sharp left, well, the fast flick left, and then into the sharp right-hander down the hill. Dan Skinner trying to hold it on. Now we've seen him overshoot this corner quite a few times. He doesn't overshoot it this time. I think with a little bit of assistance or maybe a little bit of a hip and shoulder into James Neve. But nothing, I wouldn't say anything too bad there. Just gave it a little bit of a lean as he thunders over the curb, does James Neve, and gets a good run as a consequence, actually. I thought that was going to force him wide. But he was able to get on the power nice and early, and he's using that additional stream of through the side. 3 wide, I wouldn't suggest. And I think Lars Fisher is realising that because he's just backing off, waiting for these two to finish their little battle, and then he can try and take advantage. There's a lot of smoke there by James Neve. Now, that isn't going to be bodywork rubbing on the tyres, like we could argue that it might be in real life because there was a little bit of contact earlier on. It doesn't simulate that in iRacing, so that means he may well have locked up and had to brake halfway through that corner, which allows Dan Skinner to get a good run through into the left-hander, and there's about 3 left-handers in a row for Dan Skinner to try and take advantage of. Gets to the inside, gets to the racing line, and he's able to pull through. That means James Neve is going to have to settle for second place for the time being. Neither of these drivers, sorry if you see me doing that, it's because I'm trying to blow my nose a little bit, and every time I talk, my nasal passages get a little bit blocked up, so I do apologise. Oh, 2 wide. Oh, my days. 2 wide through the S's. That would be disastrous, to say the least, and basically gift the race victory to Lars Fisher, I fear. So these two need to be a little bit sensible. Dan Skinner is desperate to get that race victory for a Pro-Am driver. As I said, we did used to see it quite a few times. We saw it quite a few times, actually, with AM drivers as well. It isn't just Pro-Am drivers that took the victory, or Pro drivers for the most part, obviously. The AM class category was also very good. And I believe, actually, I remember seeing Colin Sampson take a few victories way back when we were in lockdown, actually. One of the drivers that have been around for what feels like ever at this point for the BSR MX5 trophy. This is the Winter Series, of course, as James Neve lines another move up where we know he's not that late on the brakes there. He doesn't really like the move. Bit odd, to my opinion. I mean, I realise he doesn't want to overshoot the corner. I respect that. Got to be in it to win it. But I thought in that last race, particularly when he was following Lars Fischer, maybe there was an opportunity for him there. Now, I appreciate that maybe Lars Fischer was just a little bit quicker overall. Dan Skinner is a driver that's there to be got, and he's already got him once this race. I think he can be there again. I think he can be there again, ladies and gentlemen. Watch this space into turn one. James Neve around the outside of Dan Skinner. Lars Fischer's watching this thinking, where on earth do I put my car that's not going to end in complete disaster? Well, that's exactly where it's not heading to at the moment. Sometimes you do have to just hold off. I thought it was going to be a James Neve too wide a moment there. But sometimes you just have to hold on and see what the drivers are actually going to do. They surprised me. Neve kept it on the circuit with some good braking control. Sounds like it's a made-up thing, that braking control, but trust me, it's an actual thing. So, 1/3 of the way through this final race of the evening. I do hope it hasn't been too bad for you, ladies and gentlemen, having me and only me here. Ed, hopefully, will be back next week, as long as he can fix his computer. If he hasn't, then I'm hoping to have had someone else lined up, at least, to be able to jump in and have a bit of a watch of some MX5 action, because why wouldn't you? After you guys have been watching, only about between 6 and 10 cars turn up this evening. It's still been very exciting. So, yeah, I'm sure that another commentator will jump on if Ed is unavailable, which would be a shame because he does love the BSR, does our Ed. And, yeah, it was a bit of a shame that he couldn't get involved last season when Year 1 were covering it, and I jumped back on the commentary box. But as soon as they approached me, because Graham, if you're wondering what happened to Year 1, by the way, it wasn't like they left on bad terms or anything. It's just that Graham, who runs Year 1 and does the broadcasting. 1 second. Is James Neve going to go for the last of the late breakers? Is he going to need to? Is he going to have the move done? Well, he's not the last of the late breakers, but I think he moved his car over just enough. No. Dan Skinner finds his way through yet again, and James Neve has to, again, settle for second place. If I was Lars Fischer at this point, don't get me wrong, he's picking up good points. I would be tempted just to try and drive around the both of them at this point, because they are holding each other up significantly. And look at this, on the start-finish straight, this is opportunity for Lars Fischer. How sensible is he going to be? Is he going to try it? It would be ambitious. It would be foolish. It would be fun though, wouldn't it? And he is going for it. He's going to try and go around the outside of Dan Skinner. He puts a little bit of a brake on James Neve, and that's the thing. There's just nowhere for him to really put his car, and they're just making a roadblock at this point. It's like there's both of those drivers are making their cars particularly wide to start with, and then they're making them even wider because they are actually going side by side for the entirety of these laps. We've had 7 minutes, and I don't think we've seen them apart, to be honest. Maybe the first half a lap or something like that, but to be honest, I think they were attacking each other even then. Colin Sampson's leading the AM category, which is a bit further back down the road, to be honest, and they're not really fighting with each other at all. So this is the only fight we've got on the circuit at the moment. I can't remember what I was quite saying. Oh yeah, if you're wondering what happened to Year 1, it's just occurred to me. I don't know. I was watching, and it's just gone over my head that the fact that James Neve has gone into the race lead. I fully apologise about that. I didn't take note of that at all. So that means Dan Skinner is now defending from Lars Fischer. I do apologise. I was too busy thinking about other things. Not entirely sure what, but just a bit of a mind blank, unfortunately. But James Neve into the race lead. Dan Skinner in second place with Lars Fischer now in third. Now, we know Lars is a little bit later on the brakes than James Neve. So this could be a shorter battle than we've seen on the previous 7 minutes, shall we say, for the lead. How quickly can Lars Fischer get into second place? It's very important, actually, because obviously Lars will probably be gunning for another race victory. Because why wouldn't he? 3 out of the 4. That's to replicate his 5-star teammate Jason Cooper last week. To be honest, quite a few times this season as well, actually. I'm just seeing if normally the point sheet doesn't update through the evening anymore. It did a couple of seasons ago. No, it hasn't. But for my calculations, i.e. complete guesswork, I think that Lars Fischer will have overtaken Jason Cooper. Speaking of Lars Fischer overtaking people, I look back to my screen, which is where I should be focusing, ladies and gentlemen, and we can see that he's overtaking Dan Skinner. Like I said, Dan Skinner will take the victory in the Pro-Am, regardless of where he finishes. As long as he finishes within a lap of the lead car, he gets the full amount of points, because he is only the Pro-Am. But he is hoping, he wants that overall podium. And why shouldn't he? He's there, he's quick. He's able to hold off James Neve for a long time. He wasn't able to hold off Lars Fischer for quite as long, but Lars does have a lot more pace than a lot of other drivers here this evening. He was a full half a second quicker than the rest of the field in qualifying. So it's no surprise that he has taken the majority of the wins, and he's probably favourite, even now, even though James Neve is 0.8 of a second up the road, to take that race victory as well here this evening. So yeah, just to finish my point on year one, if anybody out there is wondering, year one and BSR, they left on amicable terms. It just so happened that Graham, who does the broadcasting and runs year one, got a different job. I believe he sets up the pit lane for the F1 now, for a majority of the F1 real life sort of races. So I think he was in the USA over the weekend. I've seen little bits and bobs where he's sort of posted on social media and stuff like that. So yeah, that's exactly what's happened to Graham, and therefore the BSR needed another broadcaster. And considering I have all the kit, I know the BSR. They had approached me in the past as well about it, but I was always a little bit too busy. The original reason why I left the BSR broadcasting in the first place actually was to jump on with VRRC, because at the end of the day, they gave me at the time was a better offer, basically. I won't lie, it wasn't all to do with the money, it was also the opportunity and the people that they were working with. But I'd done the BSR for about a year, maybe a year and a bit, and the VRRC was on a Tuesday night, and I fancied a bit of a change. And so I went to do the VRRC, and over time, the VRRC have actually changed the days they do it on. So it used to be a Tuesday and a Thursday, and then now they've just gone, then they got rid of a Thursday, and then they went to Tuesday, and then they went to Monday, and now they're on to Wednesday. And at the moment, they're sticking to Wednesday. I'm hoping that stays that way, to be honest, because it was a bit of a nightmare trying to organise everything. Lars Fischer going for a race lead move, though, on James Neve. And to be honest, that I wouldn't say came out of nowhere, but it was certainly a poor exit from James Neve. However, Lars Fischer also gets a poor exit, and a lovely little cutback there by James Neve means that he gets back into the race lead. But for how much longer? He needs to keep it nice and tidy. He needs to keep it on the road. That's often the most important thing about racing. As long as you keep it on the road, you have a good chance of being a little bit quicker than if you were off the road, put it that way. And James Neve, I think, has fallen victim a few times over the course of this evening for doing exactly that. It's getting a little bit loose on the rear end, hitting the curb slightly wrong, going towards the outside. What I will say for VIR, which is the track, Virginia International Raceway, VIR, it's not VAR, this isn't football, okay, we're not getting into that debate, is it's quite unforgiving, which in my opinion is quite good. I don't like tracks that mess around with track limits. I like tracks that actually just straight up punish you with the environment if you go wide, which might be what James Neve is experiencing a little bit here as well. I remember going to Zandvoort before they changed it all for the Formula 1, and I raced there in a Ginetta, and their briefing from the people who run, I went for a track day on a test day before, and the people who run Zandvoort was when you can use track limits all you want, but this is basically a beach. If you want to go in the sand, you can go in the sand, but I'd recommend doing it with a drink by the seaside, not in a car. And that's what I quite like. James Neve, though, is being attacked by Lars Fischer, and just like Neve was a couple of races ago, laps ago even, oh, there was almost a big incident there. Luckily, Lars Fischer and James Neve both come out of it unscathed, but there was a little bit of a moment where I thought James Neve just turned in just a touch too early, maybe angled the car, and if he didn't quite get the braking zone right, there was going to be an incident, but Lars Fischer does take the lead. Adam Delmont's come in the YouTube chat. I missed the start for the last race. No, lol, who? So that wasn't on purpose, Adam. I thought maybe you just just decided not to take part. I did think it was a strange decision, to be honest, considering the amount of points that you could have made up, and you were making up on Jason Cooper. And obviously that would have pretty much meant that it was you versus Lars Fischer for a championship, but if it was a mistake, then that's fair enough. Did you also miss it for the race 3 as well? Because although you did quite well in 5th place, that was a bit of a punisher, that was. A minute and a half to... Yeah, that is a minute and a half. Don't know why I struggled so much with the mathematics there. But a minute and a half to go. 6 drivers left in this evening. Colin Sampson still leads the AM class. Dan Skinner still leading, obviously, the Pro-Am. Lars Fischer leading the entire race, though. James Neve holding on, though. He's not being dropped. And as I was saying before, you get the impression that James Neve can keep with Lars Fischer. But you feel like Lars Fischer has got this under control because, unlike James Neve, Fischer can pull up and then overtake and stay in the lead, whereas I think James Neve is somewhat relying on the slipstream. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why he is able to hold on and give Lars Fischer a little bit of a headache towards the end of this race, is that slipstream effect. Is this potentially going to be the last lap as well? 30 seconds to go, about a third of the lap to go. This could be the last lap of the race. Let's have a little look as Lars Fischer could be on for 3 race victories in a row here. Adam Delmont, who's in the YouTube chat, should have been on pole position. Well, he wasn't there though, and that's meant Lars is able to, once he got into the lead, I wouldn't say pull away. 0.3 of a second was the closest margin that we had, and that was in race number 3. Maybe even less. 5 seconds to go, they're about to come around the final corner, which means this will be the last lap of not only this race, but the entire evening as a whole. And I tell you what, the person who's most thankful for that is my throat. I hope you've enjoyed it, ladies and gentlemen, but I know that Lars Fischer certainly has. He takes yet another victory here at the BSR MX5 trophy. It's another 5-star victory as well. How many of them are we going to have this championship? James Neve comes across the line to finish second for what I believe is the 3rd time this evening. And Dan Skinner gets on the podium for not only the Pro-Am, because that's fairly obvious, but the overall race as well. James Clark in 4th, Colin Sampson in 5th, and Chris Dixon will get to the line in whatever fashion Chris Dixon fancies getting to the line. A little bit wide there on the exit of the final corner, but he gets across the line, and we don't have a reverse grid to pull out, so I'll be able to bring you the full race results and then say good night for the evening. Oh, that's the race info. I should probably concentrate on what I'm clicking, shouldn't I? Right, I'm going to hide myself now, so goodbye to my face. It's been lovely chatting to you guys. Hopefully it's given you a little bit more almost insight into what it looks like when I'm actually commentating. I didn't put a show on then. That is how sort of animated I sort of get. And I actually, when I'm commentating, I quite like looking at the camera even though the camera's not on, because it gives me the idea that I've got someone to talk to. So yes, goodbye for now, and I'll bring you the results and maybe a driver interview. That's the wrong thing I wanted to take away. That's it. There we go. Right, Lars Fischer then taking the race victory, and it was closer by less than 0.2 of a second in the end by James Neve. Dan Skinner on the podium and in winning the Pro-Am, obviously. James Clark was in 4th place and sitting on the bottom step of the Pro category podium, but off the overall podium. Apologies. Colin Sampson then takes the AM victory, 15 seconds back. That was in 5th with Chris Dixon in 6th place. Right, I am not going to give them too much of an opportunity to come in for a chat, because there aren't that many people that actually will come in for a chat. And in fact, no, there isn't actually. There's only about 3 people left in the Discord whatsoever. So, it's about that time that I say goodbye. Thank you very much for watching. I hope it hasn't been too much of a headache for you to have my voice whittering in your ears for 2 hours and 22 minutes at this point. It's been an absolute pleasure. Please do tune in to VIRC for their MX5 Championship decider tomorrow. It looks very close. And then obviously on Saturday, I've already mentioned it quite a few times, but the Handball Hit Show will be hosted here on Jacko Racing on my Facebook page as well. So that'll be exciting. But you can catch all the action for the BSR next Tuesday, same time, same place, where hopefully we'll have a few more drivers. Good night.